Hello, what is going on YouTube? It's your boy Alexandrus, guys, and today I'm back again with another video. Today we will be interviewing Jesse from Telos, guys. Jesse, he's the head of engineering and lead core developer at Telos, guys. He has close to 20 years of experience in software development, so the man that I'm interviewing today, you know, he absolutely knows what he's talking about, and the video duration kind of shows you that as well. 40 minutes of straight up interview, guys. I hope that you will enjoy it. Let me just quickly introduce the Telos for you, if you are not already familiar with it, and then we will hop right into the interview. Of course, just as always, before we start, I need to let you know that I'm not a financial advisor. You should always do your own research and you should always do your own due diligence, because I don't take any responsibility for your actions. And with that being said, we can dive right into it. So guys, the Telos blockchain is a fully decentralized third generation ESG compliant layer 1 blockchain that has been executing energy efficient smart contracts at the fastest speeds. It's virtually uninterrupted since 2018, which is pretty impressive. Telos has the capacity to sustainably fulfill hundreds of millions of transactions per day. Based on forecasted total transactions, Telos has enough speed and capacity to generate blocks for the needs of every single layer 1 chain combined for the next decade. Telos launched a layer 1 Ethereum virtual machine, also known as EVM, which we'll be also talking about in the interview, with no front running, flat gas fees, energy efficiency, and extreme speed and power. Development and scaling of RPC nodes continue to ensure seamless onboarding, and every transaction on the Telos network utilizes less than 0.00002 kilowatts of energy per transaction, costing end users 0 to near zero gas fees, and Telos is only chain capable of delivering smart contracts for Solidity, Viper, and C++. So, well, Telos today, guys, on our cards. Let's jump right into the interview with Jesse. Enjoy, and well, enjoy the interview. Alright, guys, so I'm already here with Jesse from Telos. Happy to have you here today. I hope that you will be also happy to answer to all the questions that I prepared for you today. And yeah, if you're ready, we can start with the first one. So first of all, I would love to hear some introduction about yourself. You can tell us, the viewers, a little bit about your background and how you started working on Telos.
Sure, yeah. So I started, I've been doing software for, about 15 years now. I was doing enterprise software, like software as a service, nothing related to blockchain. But being in software, you have a lot of people you work with that, you know, talked about Bitcoin, and I didn't do anything then. And they talked about Ethereum when the ICO happened, and I didn't do anything then. And then, about 2017, when the bull run was happening, I started to think, hey, maybe I'll invest just money, right? And so I invested some money, and was realizing that, hey, I'm technical and I know how software works. I can actually look into some of the fundamentals of the projects that I'm, buying on Binance. And so I started looking into the projects and seeing the tech, and I realized some of the tech was really just not great, and then found got into trying to start building an app, and ended up stumbling into Telos just before it launched, actually just after the white paper was written. And I saw that as an opportunity not only to work with the technology that Telos has, which was great. It was a good use case for my app. And then I got involved as one of the validator nodes, the block producers, and helped actually launch the network before before launch. We spent like 4 or 5 months preparing to launch. A group of like 130 of us all worked together from around the world to deploy the software. And so that's my background, was in enterprise software. And then I've been with Telos since before we launched, helped launch. And over the years that Telos has been running over 3 years. We started the launch process about 4 years ago now. And so I got into it, and as Telos, did take some investment last year, I was able to come on full time and put all my time into Telos. So I've been doing a lot of development with Telos over the years, and now I'm able to just do it full time and focus on building great stuff, which is exciting. It makes me really happy. So that's how I got to here with Telos.
All right. Well, that's quite a story, and it's actually pretty impressive. So yeah, that's nice. I like that. Well, Telos has been also like doing really well since those 4 or 5 years, so that's very nice. Now you can tell us what Telos project actually is, how it works, what do you guys have in store for all the investors, etc. So yeah, we can move into this segment.
Yeah, absolutely. So Telos is a layer one blockchain. It's a smart contract platform. Telos, we the contracts and all the nodes are all written in C++, which gives it really high performance. And about I'm gonna say 18 months ago, the beginning of last year, we really realized that although it's very high speed, thousands of transactions a second, half second block times, like a really incredible technology, which obviously I'm biased, but I like it a lot and think it's great, and so do a lot of people. Um, the adoption is really out there in the Ethereum ecosystem, right? The EVM space. So at the beginning of last year, we set our goals on deploying an EVM, which to give a little bit of a perspective, if you think about like the movie Inception, our EVM is actually running as a smart contract on Telos. So we have started to call what we launched over 3 years ago, we're starting to call that Telos native, because that's the network and the technology we've had since the beginning. And then we deployed a contract just like any other contract on the native network. Uh, but the contract that runs all the EVM transactions is just another. So we have the EVM and we have native, but they're the same network, same set of validators, same infrastructure. And so we were able to build the entire Ethereum virtual machine inside one of our native smart contracts. And so by doing that, it inherits all of our decentralization, all of our really strong governance that we have on the native side that we've had for 3 years. It inherits all the speed, thousands of transactions a second, uh, half second block times, all the great things about our EVM. A lot of them are inherited from our native network, and so we didn't have to add any second network or bridges. It's just one network, and that's really what Telos is. It's that layer one blockchain. When we launched, we distributed the tokens very fairly. We didn't raise any money, so it was a grassroots launch. It wasn't until last year that any big investment came to the network. So we have very fair distribution, and all of the things that are done on the network are done via token holder votes on chain. So we're not using a snapshot or a off chain form or anything. It's literally on chain. Votes are made and decisions are executed. So we're a very fair decentralized network that now has an EVM as of November of last year. That's what I think one of the best EVMs out there. So that's really what Telos is. And again, we have 3 years of apps that have been running on our native network. So we have a lot of really exciting stuff on our native network. Dexes and NFT markets and social apps and all sorts of great stuff going on our native network. And now we've introduced the EVM, which has brought what we expected, which was this just influx of all of the EVM apps, right? So you've got all your Pancake Swap forks, all your NFT marketplaces, all of the things that you see showing up on every EVM. We see them on Telos, except we see them at half second block times. All the benefits that the EVM has. It's a great experience compared to using those same apps that are forked and deployed on other EVMs.
All right, yeah, and I have to admit that the technology here and the development over at Telos is mind blowing in the good way. So that's pretty cool. We will touch on the EVM a little bit later on, also because I have one more question related to it. But now I wanted to talk about the Telos. It is being called underrated in some medias and also undervalued. What do you think of this valuation? Why do you think is that happening? And what is your opinion in this underrated and undervalued aspect?
Well, I think in the crypto space, there's maybe a disproportionate uh, rating and value compared to the actual technology in a lot of cases. I think a lot of excitement and projects that are successful are successful because they did an ICO. They got a lot of attention. They put a lot of money into marketing. They have VCs behind them who are doing things maybe behind the curtain to encourage the success of the project. And so people that don't know about Telos wouldn't try it and wouldn't know how incredible it is. So we were at Consensus out in Austin, Texas in June, and one of my favorite things to do that was the easiest way was just send people, do you have MetaMask? All right, just go to our Explorer, connect the wallet. Let me send you some Telos, then go over to an exchange and try it. And they're within, sometimes people that were quick, in under a minute, they've like done 3 transactions and they've seen how fast it is. And then they realize, oh, wow, this is, as you said, underrated, because they realize that it's great technology and it's a great experience for the user to feel that quick response of the technology that they kind of expect from Web 2, right? So in Web 2, you don't watch for 15 seconds while your email gets sent, right? You don't have the slow block time kind of slowness that you kind of get in Web 3 sometimes with some of the blockchains. Um, so yeah, like just getting people to know about it, having the marketing that you would have if you did an ICO. Again, we launched grassroots, no ICO, no money raised. Everybody that was helping build Telos for the first 3 years was doing it to earn Telos, and there's no dollars and no funds there. So we had to create value with the token out of nothing, and we survived. We were born in that bear market of 2018, and survived through to now and are thriving. So we're starting to get a lot of attention. People have heard of us, and it's just a matter of time before more people have heard of us, and we get the attention that I think we deserve.
Absolutely. Okay, really cool. And well, the way you said how you guys were doing this with the people and how they were testing it on their own, it is pretty cool. I certainly agree. Many people also, invest nowadays into like meme coins, and they don't appreciate the actual technology that some of the projects like you guys have. And this is what should definitely be changed. And I hope that at least some of my viewers will have a look at Telos, in fact, because it is worth it. I also hold some Telos myself, so I know what I'm talking about. All right. So now I wanted to ask, why is Telos the best layer 1 EVM platform? Can you also tell us a little bit about the front running, which is some sort of a problem? And yeah, I wanted to basically touch on that.
Sure. Yeah. So our native network has been proven to over 10,000 transactions a second, and the block times are half-second block times, so they happen very quickly. So our EVM inherits all that. Another really great aspect of the EVM is the no front running, as you mentioned. So that comes from the native network as well. So it's a first in, first out. I call it a FIFO queue, meaning the first transactions that will arrive at the validator node that's producing that block for half a second. The first transactions it receives are the first ones it processes. There's no public mempool. There's no reordering of transactions like there are in a lot of networks. If you look at most EVMs, that's part of their behavior. It's intentional. You pay more gas, you cut in line, right? So because a number of reasons, one, our native technology just doesn't have that concept. We would have to have invented it to do it with our EVM, and we didn't feel, in terms of fairness, that was a good idea. Also, because we can do over 10,000 transactions a second, we don't need to charge somebody more to cut in line when there is no line. I like to use the analogy of like a big stadium, right? You're going to a sports event and there's no lines. Why would you go try to find a security guard and pay them to get in the side door when there's no line at the front door, right? So our gas price is fixed. Everybody pays the same gas price. The way that it actually works is if your gas price is in the transaction that you sign. So if you say that you'll pay more or equal to what our gas price is, then we charge you what our gas price is. We won't charge you the more amount. If you say you'll pay less, of course, it's rejected because you have to pay at least that price. So everybody pays the same gas price, and everybody's transactions are treated equally and processed in first in, first out. So with front running, just to touch on that, what it is, if you make a trade on other EVMs that do support fluctuating gas prices and reordering transactions, if you make a trade that's going to buy a bunch of some token, and you set your gas price too low and you don't set your slippage low enough, then these bots are watching for that, and they say, oh, you're about to buy a bunch of Ethereum. Okay, I'm going to buy a bunch of Ethereum, but I'm going to pay more gas, which means I'll buy it just before you buy it. And then those same bots have it set up to very, very immediately sell that Ethereum. So you see these trades, they call them sandwich trades, and you can see them on all the exchange front ends that, like Dex tools and things. You see the little bad guy icon showing, guy bought a bunch of Ethereum. This guy in the middle of the sandwich, he totally got a bad trade. And then the bad sniper bot sold that Ethereum right away. So we just don't have that. And similar with NFTs, like if you're thinking about a big NFT mint and everybody's rushing to mint the NFT, and everybody's setting their gas price higher and higher so they can get the NFTs. And then you end up at the end of that whole thing with, a bunch of people that actually paid a good amount in gas, but didn't pay enough. So all they did was pay for the gas and not get an NFT. So that type of stuff also doesn't happen. It's whoever's first gets the NFTs. Doesn't matter what gas price they're willing to pay. They're going to get charged the same as everybody else. So the no front running is a pretty big deal. But on top of that, I don't want to overshadow the fact that we can do, I think right now Ethereum's max is like 38, 35 transactions in a second. Some of the bigger networks, newer ones like Polygon and Avalanche do boast more. We can do thousands. We're in the process right now. I can't share too much, but we will be sharing all the details in the future of doing a real big benchmark of the software, and the numbers are pretty impressive. So once we get that out there, people will hopefully pay attention even more to the fact that we can handle a huge amount of users at once in the same block, and the response times, waiting. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people on that are your viewers have seen, like I have, when I want to send some Ethereum or send some tether around on Ethereum, and you make the transfer and you let MetaMask pick the gas price, and then by the time the transaction makes it in a block or makes it to the mempool, the gas prices have gone up, and then you're watching and you're realizing, well, they're not going to put your transaction in that block because maybe you want to speed it up and pay more gas. And then I'm stubborn, so I'm like, no, I want to wait and see if price will come back down, because if 65 was good enough 2 minutes ago, then 65 should be good enough in the next 10 minutes, and eventually it gets in there, right? But waiting 15 seconds, 12 seconds per block to see if it gets in there, and then seeing that it doesn't because you didn't pay enough gas, and all that because their blocks can only fit so many transactions, is just not a great user experience. Again, like my background is Web 2 enterprise software, where this type of experience is not acceptable, and to get to mass adoption, you're going to need a Web 3 technology that can treat users and give users the same feel that they have from Web 2, and so that's really where our EVM can come in and shine. So that's the gist of it.
Yeah, the issue with Ethereum, I've been dealing with that. Yeah, it's a headache. So yeah, and I'm pretty sure people were also having that. Yeah, the technology is absolutely amazing. 10,000 transactions a second. Comparing this to Ethereum and the FIFO strategy as well, it is pretty cool. Because again, as you said, if there is no line, you don't need to charge additional money to cut into that line, right? So everyone pretty much pays the same price. The price is also very low. You have small gas fees.
That's true.
So this is another advantage, and you are way better than Ethereum blockchain when it comes to the scalability, I think, and also the overall transaction speed. So yeah, I think it is definitely worth noting. Okay, so what kind of unique things and features do you guys have at Telos, besides those that we already discussed, of course?
Yeah, sure. So there's a bunch of different things, and I always kind of forget and take for granted all the really great stuff we have going on. But a few things I would touch on our native network, we have something called the Decide Voter voting engine. So it's a governance engine that we use to run all of our voting for the network. So anybody who holds the Telos token on the native network can vote. They can vote for validators, of course, because we're a delegated proof of stake network, like some other networks out there. And we also use that Telos token in our Decide voting engine, which you can create ballots, you can integrate other smart contracts with the Decide engine, and you can create your own voting token. So we actually have a number of apps that have selected Telos to build on because they need that DAO engine for all of their voting for their projects. So they have their own voting token that they use. It's not Telos, they vote with their own token. They distribute and manage it however they want, but they can use the voting engine for their purposes. And for Telos, some of the cool things that we use it for, we have a worker proposal system, meaning people can submit proposals. So that's a separate smart contract that anybody could do the same thing. It's all permissionless and open, and the code is open source. But so we have a worker proposals contract which receives some funding from the network, and people can submit proposals there and request funds, and then the Telos token holders can vote on it. And what actually happens is the worker proposal contract just talks to the Decide contract, submits a ballot, voters vote on the ballot with their Telos through Decide, and then when the ballot's completed, the Decide engine notifies the worker proposal contract, hey, this is done, and then the worker proposal contract can go look at the results of that ballot and then distribute the funds. So that's just one example. We also manage all of our, so again, we're a strong decentralized network, and we manage all of our governance rules, like the language and the operating agreement that we have on the network. All the rules of running the network, our governance documents are all stored in IPFS, and the hashes of the IPFS documents are stored in a smart contract. So as we go to change things on the network, people are voting to update the IPFS hash of one of the sections of our governance documents. So we've done a bunch of these to change the rules, to get token holders to approve, to behave differently, to just change certain aspects of the network that in the original governance documents said should be one way, and now we want to change them. So we're amending them. And that all, again, uses the same concept. One contract with the IPFS hashes then talks to our Decide engine, which does the ballot. So we have a foundation. The board has been elected through the same process. The token holders elect the board. So all these things are on-chain voting, and so our Decide engine is something we're really proud of, and it's very powerful. And that probably is like one of my favorite things on our native network that we have as a platform, right? So we have awesome apps as well that have built on both native and EVM, but just as a platform and what we offer, those are, the Decide engine's a key innovator. We have a bunch of other awesome stuff as well. So, we have for our EVM, we have an indexer that's coming soon that'll offer all like the APIs that, you would expect, NFTs, holders lists, things like that. We have Telos, which is something else that's coming soon. And one other thing that's really cool that we started doing out of the work we did for Telos, which we should talk about Telos as well here in a second, but is interoperability. So our EVM and our native network can actually interoperate. So we have this incredible fast feeless network. Our native network is feeless, so you don't pay a gas fee. And that network can actually interoperate with the EVM. So we've shared code and built like reusable utilities for people to integrate their native contracts with the EVM, because the EVM really has a lot stronger DeFi with the DEXs and things like that. But on the native network, there's some really good use cases like around social, like one of our apps, Apix. It's a social app similar to Instagram, where you post pictures and get votes and earn their token. And their token you earn there, but really the DeFi for it would, probably see a lot of adoption inside the EVM, where the DEXs are, your standard pancake swap type swap app is in there. So be able to bridge between the two and interoperate is a really cool thing to get best of both breeds of technology. So that's another really, really cool aspect of that. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure I've left out a few things. There's just so many great things about Telos that differentiates it.
All right, yeah, still absolutely nailed it. So, so yeah, okay. All right, now sort of a generic question, but I still want to ask it nonetheless. What is currently happening with Telos in terms of like any collaborations, events? Yeah, just wanted to quickly touch on that.
Yeah, I mean, we have a really strong business development team that, I'm privy to some of the things in the pipeline, but obviously can't share. But they're out there talking to all the leading apps out there in the space. We had such a great time out in Consensus in Texas. Met a lot of cool projects, and are working with quite a few of them now. So we have a lot of partnerships and apps and different things lined up. Uh, there's also a bunch that have already been announced. If you look at our website, there's a long list of apps that we've partnered with recently. So as far as partnerships go, it's just a constant, flow, and it's just a matter of when things are right to announce, when things actually happen. We at Telos don't like to announce announcements or do too much of like the lead up. We like to just, when things are done and they're happening, let's talk about them. So as far as partnerships go, yeah, we have, as far as events go, we've got a number of conferences. We'll be at, don't recall the name of it, up in Toronto, here, I think this weekend, there's a big one we'll be at, and other ones coming up soon as well. And then, as far as like, that's like conference events, but other events that we have coming soon, as I mentioned, Telos. So we have on our native network, one of the things that we used that governance on-chain voting to decide was we turned on some staking rewards about, I want to say 2 years ago now. The token holders all voted to turn on staking rewards, and then the core dev team that I'm a part of, we had to do some implementation and update the contract so that we could actually do the staking rewards. When the network launched, there was a reserve of tokens that was set aside, so our supply doesn't go up, but what we're doing is drawing down from this reserve, instead of increasing supply. So this isn't a Terra Luna type algorithmic staking reward. I just want to make sure that's clear. It's a pool of tokens that once they run out, which right now the runways, I think around 2 years worth, are still there. So, but we draw down from the reserve that was set aside when we launched the network, and then we distribute those as staking rewards. But that's only on our native network. So as the EVM was launched, people heard about Telos. They heard about this. I think it was like 13% APR at the time, and I think it still is close to 13%. And they said, "Well, I want some of that." And but they're only EVM users. They only use MetaMask. They didn't ever use our native network, and they're not familiar with it, and they don't really want to do that. What they want is they want the staking rewards inside the EVM. So that's what Telos is. So we've done a bunch of work, again, interoperability, so we can distribute the tokens from the native network directly into the Telos contract. Telos is using this new ERC 4626 standard, which is a new like yield bearing asset token vault standard that other, it's from Ethereum, ERC. So that standard is perfect for the staking rewards that we needed to do. So Telos is coming like soon, like imminently. We have the audit complete. We have the UI just about complete. We're going to go through some UAT and make sure everything works well. And then we're going to deploy it so that all of the users of the EVM who just want to stick with MetaMask or whatever, EVM wallet they prefer, they can also participate in the staking reward. So we're really excited about that. We think that's going to really drive some interesting use cases, primarily because the Telos token is actually transferable. So on our native network, it's called Rex. And when you stake into Rex, you don't get anything back. It's locked up. When you want to unstake, you unstake and you get back more, right? APR. So you put Telos in, get more Telos out, but you don't get anything to hold on to or any token to use while it's in there. With Telos, it's different because ERC 4626 is, gives you back a receipt token. So you put Telos in, you get Telos out. Now you have this, it's an ERC 20 token that's a yield bearing token, meaning it's going up in value. The Telos token, if you have one of them, will be worth more Telos tomorrow than it was worth today because of the APR. So now you have this token, you're earning APR on the Telos that you staked, but now you have this token that you can do something with. So obviously I expect to see like pools show up where you can swap Telos for Telos. But there's a lot of other like really interesting use cases that we've talked about. And there's probably a lot of interesting ones that nobody's thinking of yet because it's a new standard. And there's different creative DeFi instruments that can come out of that. So we're super excited about that. That's coming soon. We've got a bunch of other really cool innovations coming, and app partnerships that are lined up that can't be announced yet. So, but right now, a lot of our excitement's around Telos because it's going live in the next couple weeks.
Fair enough, yeah, and in my opinion, it will also drive you a lot of new, potential investors, especially those lazy ones, which, as you said, they prefer to stick to MetaMask, which is, fair enough, right? Yeah, it is nice way to open Telos also for new people, for new investors. Very cool.
And I think everybody wants to see people bring their tokens off the exchanges, right? Hold them in your wallet. Like, this is a good reason for people to do that. I mean, Telos trades on. We have it bridged over to Ethereum and Binance Smart Chain, right? So there's the bridged versions of the token, but and then people can hold it on KuCoin or Gate or whatever centralized exchange they prefer. But if there's no real incentive, if they've bought a lot of them and they're investors, and there's no real incentive to move it into their MetaMask wallet, except for the security aspect, which is why everybody says, not your keys, not your crypto. But some people, like you said, are lazy. And so this will give them a reason to move it into the EVM. And then they'll have this Telos that they're just kind of holding on to. And then as use cases for Telos pop up, then there'll be more opportunities to use it. So that's hopefully like a nice, like you said, incentive for them to not be as lazy.
All right. Yeah, it makes sense. Well, why let your tokens sit if they can make money for you, right? Like, essentially. All right. So let's talk about your competitors a little bit. Last but not least question. I will also give you some time later if you want to add something. But yeah, could you compare Telos to some of your competitors, such as, for example, Solana, which is recently on the rise?
Sure. Yeah. So Solana, man, I like to just talk about Telos and how great we are, because I don't think I think that a lot of people out there just like to talk bad about other projects because they don't have a lot of good things to say about their own. But we have so much good stuff to say about Telos that it's easy to just talk about our virtues. But Solana is kind of an easy target, right? And I think this recent hack that happened is really nothing to do with Solana. From what I've gathered, I've been kind of paying close attention to it. I think it's just a wallet that was built for Solana, that the developers of the wallet, maybe intentionally or unintentionally, that's to be determined, made some bad choices and shared, let the private key get saved in some logging server. That could happen to anybody who's not doing a good job with their wallet, right? So I wouldn't say that that's a bad mark on Solana. And I think a lot of people that are beginners in the space might think it is related or is related to blockchain in general. And I don't think that's the case for that. But the other things that we can talk about, like, we haven't ever gone down. We've been up for, since December of 2018. The network never shut down. We never gathered our validators to pick which block we're going to relaunch from. So if you're comparing to Solana and some other networks, we've seen it happen on some of the bigger names. They go down, right? They have to reorganize and relaunch the network. So we've got an uptime, of 100%. Knock on wood. We've been through some pretty heavy kind of like CPU mining attacks where we had people blasting as many transactions as they could. We handled them just fine. So that's one aspect. Another is, if you think about the VC, like I mentioned earlier, we launched without any VC. So there's not somebody sitting on 50% of the supply. And it could be a good and a bad thing, right? We don't have some absurd amount of ICO money to pump marketing. Although now we've taken an investment and things are really, greatly improved compared to how they were maybe 2 years ago. But we don't have that massive pile of VC capital, which has made it harder. But where we are today, I'm glad we made that decision. And then on the opposite side, we don't have a VC sitting there with 60-70% of the supply. The team itself, when we launched, we had 130 people or something. We all split like 6% of the supply. So there was no large founders pool everybody who has a good amount of Telos either bought it or earned it over the past 3 or 4 years. And so there's no one individual sitting on even 10% of the supply. There's no one entity like VC entity sitting on more than, anything that amount, unless of course they've accumulated it and distributed it across wallets, but they would have had to do that like on the market, which that is just what it is. But there's no like early low, pre-sale price where VCs are just the only controllers of the network, which becomes really important when you talk about voting and how you make decisions about a truly decentralized network. It's kind of a little bit of a facade when you say that you're decentralized and you do voting to make decisions, important decisions about the network. And then you come to realize that, well, there's two people or one person, one entity that controls over 50% of the tokens. So they decide what goes on the network, not the token holders, right? So there's that. And then, when you talk about Solana, like their TPS claims, I think it's fair that they claim their 60,000 transactions a second, because what they do is they include all of they call it gossip, I think, which is how like all the different nodes talk to each other. They communicate using these gossip transactions, and they also do all their voting through transactions. So the network, like the critical pieces of how the network operates, are using this, sharing, if you will, the same queue, the same pool of transaction capacity as the users. So when they say 60,000 transactions a second, what they mean is they're measuring not just your and my transactions, not just user transactions, but they're measuring all of the transactions that are in this one big pool. And that includes all this communication between the nodes that aren't really transactions, so to speak, right? And the problem with that is when then you get a surge of user traffic, which is, from what I understand, why they've gone down a number of times. They get a huge surge of user transactions, which then threaten and compete with the critical network transactions that you need to run the network. So on one hand, yeah, you can get a bigger number if you put everything together and measure that one big thing. But now you have a problem where you aren't separating the critical network transactions from the user transactions. And now, a surge of user activity can bring down your network. So when we talk about our transactions a second, those are paid for end user transactions, not all the other ones. Like our nodes are still communicating, and votes and all the things that we're talking about here are still being done through the peer-to-peer network, but we don't measure those, and those are done through a different kind of channel where they can't be impacted if the load on the network goes up. So yeah, I think, again, back to what I was saying earlier, I think a lot of people focus a lot on the sparkle and the appeal, and a lot of these networks take that money they got from the VCs and they just pay apps to launch. They just throw money at apps. So then they have all these apps, and it makes the network look like it's a better piece of technology because those apps chose it. And then you come to find out those apps got paid $1 million to choose that network. So of course they did. And then those apps maybe have trouble there, and they don't have the most success because the technology that they are using is not based on the best technology, but the best, welcome to our network pile of money. So that's another aspect where it's like our apps have chosen us because it's great technology, and so that's generally how I see the situation between us and our competition. We are growing organically to where we've gotten today, and we'll continue to. And we were born in a bear market, although the market's kind of turning around right now. It was pretty rough there for a while earlier this year, and it might go back down, right? We were born in a bear market. We were born with no big bulls running around in the market, and we survived, and we will continue to. Like, we're not dependent on that ICO money that we didn't start with, right? So like I've talked to people where they're like, well, what happens if the market crashes? And I'm like, you realize we started with zero, so we've only gone up. Whereas other networks, they start with $30 million, and when that runs out, what are they going to do? Well, I know what we were going to do, and the same thing we've been doing since we started. So that's another thing to consider as networks come and go. If they only came because they had a pile of money, they're probably going to go when they don't. And we don't have that situation at Telos. So.
And you also have that experience working with the bear market, so that's pretty solid,
Building in the bear market
right.
is a nice catchphrase.
Exactly. Well, I also wanted to add from myself that sometimes getting into those, projects that are mostly managed by VCs is even dangerous, because as you said, like 1-2 people or 1 or 2 VCs, they can literally like control the whole governance, right? So, well, technically the project has the governance, but it kind of doesn't at the same time, because, well, 1 or 2 people can control it. But yeah, that aside, you absolutely nailed it on all of these questions. I'm really happy with that. If you want to add something about Telos, generally, if you want to add something, I can give you a few minutes for that. So if you want, then just go ahead.
Sure. I mean, just let everybody know that, at Telos, we're a permissionless public blockchain, and we are far more, a lot of the feedback we've gotten from, apps that have chosen us. In fact, the number one reason a lot of times they choose us is because we're, all of our leadership, all of our validators, everybody is very like easy to talk to and find. We're not, you can come find us in our Telegram, me and others that are part of the leadership, and people that are just our developers and everything in the community is very welcoming. So, we've found that apps really like that because they can work with us. We're not just, read the documentation, use the technology, and there's nobody there to, help or, guide you to the right direction. So just in general, we love talking to any apps that are interested in the technology. And it doesn't just mean developers that are going to choose where they're going to build, but people that are part of projects or just, part of a community of a project that, might be a good fit for Telos. Just send them over. We're always looking to onboard new apps and grow the network, and people that are doing like innovative things with the technology, not just, another pancake swap fork, but, some more innovative stuff. There's really some good synergy there with Telos because we are doing a lot of new innovative technology and building, and we've got a lot of really cool kind of plans for the future that while it may not seem like, the right thing now, but there's some of the things we have planned for the future that could be really awesome for apps and developers that want to build something incredible. So, just stop in, find us in Telegram, and ask questions. If you want to talk, we can always get on a call and see how we can help.
Yeah, all the links will be plugged down below. Go check them out. I would be really happy if you guys did so. Well, as I said, I'm a holder myself, so I know what I'm showing you on this channel, right? Thank you, Jesse, again for attending. Thank you so much for being interested in giving an interview. Well, all right, so we'll be wrapping this up here. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, thank you, and well, you can say bye to the viewers.
All right, bye everybody. Thanks for watching. Guys.